The ruins of Facility Epsilon stretched before Sergeant Nadia Kessler like the skeletal remains of some long-dead beast. Twisted metal and shattered concrete created a labyrinth of shadows beneath the amber sky of Proxima Colony. 3 days had passed since the evacuation order, yet Nadia couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right about this mission. Command, this is Kessler, approaching eastern quadrant of Epsilon. No signs of hostile activity, she reported, her voice echoing strangely in the emptiness. Static answered her, punctuated by fragments of words too broken to decipher. Nadia adjusted her pulse rifle, weight familiar against her shoulder as she navigated through the debris. Her orders were straightforward. Secure any remaining research. Data set the charges. Turn to base. Simple routine. Except nothing about this felt routine. The strange burn mark on her right wrist itched, circular pattern that had appeared 3 days ago. The medic had been baffled. Never seen radiation damage manifest like this, she'd said, applying a regenerative compound that did nothing to fade the mark. A sound faint but distinct drew her attention. Metal scraping against metal, followed by a wet, rasping cough. Nadia dropped into a crouch, weapon raised, heart steady, despite the surge of adrenaline. Through her targeting scope, she identified a human silhouette sprawled beside a collapsed doorway 30 meters ahead. The form moved slightly, one hand reaching upward, as if grasping for something invisible. Approach or avoid? Training, said avoid. Instinct, said approach. She moved forward in a half-crouch, keeping to cover, weapon ready. As she drew nearer, details emerged from the gloom, standard-issue expedition gear. Proxima Security Division patch, auburn hair matted with blood. Then she saw the face. Her blood turned to ice. The world tilted beneath her feet. The dying woman was her. Same face, same scar across her left eyebrow, same green eyes, though one was now swollen shut beneath a web of blood. Her doppelganger lay pinned beneath a fallen support beam, chest heaving with labored breaths, uniform soaked in blood. Came. The dying woman whispered, blood bubbling at the corner of her mouth. I wasn't sure if the message would reach you in time. Nadia knelt beside herself, mind reeling. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be real. Yet the blood soaking into the knees of her uniform felt warm and undeniably real.
Ali, listen carefully.
The dying Nadia's voice was barely audible, each word clearly costing her dearly. Her hand shot out with surprising strength, fingers clutching Nadia's wrist with desperate urgency. Tomorrow, you'll meet him. Cerulean Skin claims to be an observer. Don't trust him, no matter what happens. Who shouldn't I trust? Nadia demanded, leaning closer. Webb assigned him to you deliberately. Says his name is Orion. The dying woman coughed, fresh blood staining her lips. Check your wrist. If the mark is there, you're not the first. You're never the first. Her grip tightened, eyes suddenly clear and focused despite the approaching death. I've died in his arms 4 times already. The cycle keeps repeating. What cycle? What are you talking about? Nadia asked, struggling to process what she was hearing. The dying woman's eyes fluttered, but she fought to keep them open. The temporal anchor. They said it was for research, but Webb lied. It's a weapon. Reality is fracturing. Her gaze drifted past Nadia, seeing something beyond. If you still go to him, look into his eyes. Really look. He feels something too. Every time, that's the only reason I still hope. ... The light was already fading from her double's eyes. The grip on her wrist slackened. One final rattling breath escaped her lips, then nothing. Nadia remained frozen beside the corpse, her mind racing to process what she'd witnessed. This wasn't a clone or a doppelganger. The implications were staggering, impossible. Yet the evidence lay before her. With shaking hands, she reached for the identification badge hanging around her dead counterpart's neck. The holographic image flickered in the dim light, spattered with blood but still legible. Her name, her service number, her security clearance, everything identical. All down to the chip malfunction that had corrupted the last digit. Nadia slipped the badge into her pocket and stood, casting one last look at her own dead face before turning away. Whatever had happened here, whatever was going to happen, She would now forewarned. She would not make the same mistake. She would not trust him, whoever he might be. The morning briefing room hummed with nervous energy as Director Webb addressed the assembled security team. Nadia sat rigidly in the back row, the stolen ID badge from her future self burning like a hot coal in her pocket. The temporal research. Equipment at Facility Epsilon was more delicate than we initially believed, Webb explained, his thin frame casting a long shadow against the holographic display. The evacuation was merely a precaution. We'll be sending in a specialized team to recover what remains. Nadia studied Webb's angular face, searching for signs of deception. Yesterday, he had been just another administrator, brilliant but unremarkable. Today, after her impossible encounter, every word from his mouth sounded like a potential lie. Sergeant Kessler, Webb called, his eyes finding hers in the crowd. Your preliminary recon was invaluable. You'll be partnered with our specialist consultant for the recovery operation. The door hissed open, and Nadia's hand instinctively moved toward her sidearm. He was tall, broad shoulders, and a fluid grace that spoke of extensive combat training. His skin was a deep cerulean blue that seemed to absorb the harsh overhead lights. But it was his eyes that caught her attention, amber, with vertical pupils, ancient and knowing, in a face that appeared no older than her own. This is Orion, Webb continued. He's an observer from the Cerulean Diplomatic Corps, specially requested for this operation. Orion's gaze swept over the assembled team, lingering for a fraction too long on Nadia. Something flickered across his expression, recognition perhaps, or resignation. Sergeant Phantom, he said, using her call sign rather than her name, a call sign she hadn't shared with him. Webb didn't seem to notice the irregularity. Report to Equipment Bay 3 at 0800 hours tomorrow. Dismissed. As the room emptied, Nadia remained seated, watching as Orion conferred quietly with Webb. Their body language suggested familiarity beyond a new professional relationship. When Webb left, Orion turned and approached her directly. Sergeant Kessler, he said, his voice carrying a melodic quality typical of Ceruleans. I look forward to working with you. How did you know my call sign? Now she asked bluntly. He blinked, the gesture strangely human for his alien features. Your reputation precedes you. Strange, since I don't have much of a reputation, she countered. Perhaps you're more important than you realize. The words hung between them, laden with meaning she couldn't decipher, before she could press further. He glanced down at her wrist, where the strange burn mark peeked out from beneath her sleeve. His expression changed, subtly, a flash of what might have been grief. That's an unusual marking, he observed carefully. A training accident, she lied. Of course. His tone made it clear he didn't believe her. Until tomorrow, then. Nadia accessed the colony's secure database using override codes she'd borrowed from a senior officer. What she found about Orion left her cold. His credentials were impeccable. His clearance exceeded even Webb's. With entire sections of his file simply missing or filled with obvious placeholder text, most concerning was his arrival date on Proxima Colony, 3 weeks in the future. Morning found her in the equipment bay, methodically checking her gear while waiting for Orion. She'd slept poorly. Dreams haunted by her own dead eyes and fractured timelines she couldn't comprehend. Did you find what you were looking for in my file? Orion's voice came from behind her. She didn't startle, didn't turn, not really. There wasn't much to find, and yet you looked. He moved to stand beside her, beginning his own equipment check with practiced efficiency. What did your future self tell you about me? The question struck like a physical blow. Nadia spun to face him, pulse rifle half raised. How could you possibly know about that? His amber eyes met hers steadily. Because we've done this before.
It's not exactly.
This siege iteration has its variations, but the essentials remain the same. She told me not to trust you, Nadia said flatly. A sad smile touched his lips. Yes, that's what you always say. The implications of his words hit her like a physical blow. How many times has this happened? Instead of answering, he asked, Do you ever feel like we've met before? No, she answered honestly. This is all new to me. It always is. He finished securing his equipment. Director Webb is waiting. Shall we? As they walked toward the transport, Nadia kept a careful distance between them. If what you're implying is true, prove it. Tell me something only I would know. Orion considered this for a moment. 3 nights ago, You dreamed of a red door and a white corridor. You've had the same dream since childhood, but never told anyone. Believe it means something, but you don't know what. Nadia stopped walking, blood rushing in her ears. How could you possibly? You told me, he said simply. In the third iteration, Facility Epsilon looked different in daylight, less ominous, more tragic. Nadia and Orion moved through the wreckage with practiced efficiency, scanning for radiation signatures while Webb monitored their progress from the mobile command center. Half a kilometer away? The temporal anchor should be in the central laboratory. Webb's voice crackled through their coms. Proceed with caution. Its containment field may be compromised. Nadia kept her weapon ready, eyes constantly tracking Orion as he moved slightly ahead of her. Despite her mistrust, she couldn't deny his competence. He navigated the ruins as if he'd memorized every broken corridor and collapsed doorway. Because he had. A voice whispered in her mind. How many times had he walked this path before? You're wondering why I don't just complete the mission without you, Orion said, without turning around. The answer is simple. I can't. The anchor responds to your genetic signature, a fail-safe built into the system. Convenient, Nadia muttered. Not really, he replied. It's made everything considerably more complicated. They reached a massive circular door, partially melted along its edges. The insignia of Proxima Research Division was still visible, warped but recognizable. This is it, Orion said, removing specialized equipment from his pack. Laboratory. As he worked on bypassing the security systems, Nadia studied him. Despite his alien physiology, his movements betrayed tension, anticipation, perhaps, or dread. If we've done this before, she began, why don't I remember? Why don't I have memories from these ... previous iterations? Orion's hands paused briefly. The human mind isn't designed to process temporal displacement. Your consciousness resets with each loop, while mine ... He trailed off, focusing again on his work. While yours what? The door groaned, then slid open halfway before jamming. Orion straightened, meeting her gaze directly. My species perceives time differently. The loops affect me, but I retain. Impressions, feelings. Not complete memories, but enough to know we've been here before. Beyond the door lay destruction, beyond anything they'd seen in the outer facility. Equipment lay shattered, walls warped as if melted and refrozen. In the center stood a device unlike anything Nadia had encountered, a spherical structure. Suspended within a lattice of pulsing energy, its surface rippling like disturbed water. The temporal anchor, Orion said quietly. The most dangerous technology humans have ever created. Nadia approached cautiously, mesmerized by the shifting patterns across the anchor's surface. Within them, she glimpsed what appeared to be reflections, but not of the present room. Scenes flickered across. The surface. The facility intact and operational. Herself in a lab coat rather than combat gear. Orion and her talking intensely. Director Webb shouting orders as alarms blared. What am I seeing? She whispered. Temporal echoes. Fragments of other iterations. Orion began setting up equipment around the anchor. The device was designed to stabilize research into parallel timelines. Instead, it created a causality loop. Each time it activates fully, reality resets to 3 weeks before the explosion. And how many times has it reset? Orion's expression darkened. This is the 5th iteration I can recall clearly. My counterpart said she'd died in your arms 4 times already, Nadia said. That means I die each time. Yes, the word hung. Between them, heavy with unspoken emotion. Why? What happens? Orion continued working, not meeting her eyes. The anchor emits Cronin radiation when destabilized. It's harmless to my physiology, but fatal to humans with prolonged exposure. Each time you've chosen to help me stabilize it, knowing the cost. Nadia felt a chill creep up her spine. And Webb, what's his role in this? He designed the anchor. In the original timeline, he planned to use it as a weapon reset time too. Gain tactical advantages in conflicts. When it malfunctioned, he realized he could still achieve his goals by controlling the loops. Orion connected a final component to his equipment. He remembers each iteration completely. He's been manipulating events, using us both, The cum unit on Nadia's wrist crackled. Sergeant Kessler, report status, Webb's voice demanded. Nadia hesitated, looking at Orion. He nodded slightly. We've located the anchor, she reported. Beginning stabilization procedures? Excellent. Remember your primary objective, Sergeant? Cum went silent. Nadia frowned. I wasn't given a primary objective beyond recovery. He wasn't talking to you, Orion said grimly. He was reminding me of what? Orion's amber eyes met hers. Filled with conflict, in each previous iteration, I was sent to ensure you helped stabilize the anchor, then eliminate you afterward. Your genetic signature is the key to controlling the technology. Webb can't risk you surviving to interfere with his plans. Nadia raised her weapon, aiming at his chest. And that's your plan this time too? It was, he admitted. Until the third iteration, when something changed. What changed? Nadia asked, weapon still trained on Orion's chest. The cerulean's expression softened, a vulnerability there she hadn't seen before. You saved my life. We were ambushed by Webb's secondary team. He always has a contingency. You took a shot meant for me. I couldn't understand why. Stepped closer, seemingly unconcerned by her weapon. In the fourth iteration, I tried to warn you immediately. You didn't believe me? The cycle repeated. But something else happened in that loop. The anchor pulsed behind them, its surface swirling more rapidly, as if responding to their conversation. Nadia saw reflections of themselves within it standing. Closer, speaking intently then. ... She lowered her weapon slightly. We became close. More than close, Orion confirmed. It shouldn't have been possible. Different species, different perceptions of reality. But time kept bringing us together, and each iteration deepened the connection. Sudden tremor shook the facility, dust and debris raining down from the ceiling. The anchors pulsing, intensified, bathing the room in ethereal light. It's destabilizing, Orion warned, turning back to his equipment. We don't have much time. Nadia made a decision, holstering her weapon. Tell me what to do. Together they worked to stabilize the anchor, hands occasionally brushing as they connected components and adjusted settings. Each touch sent an unexpected spark through Nadion, unpleasant but disorienting, like Dacia Vu made physical. The anchor needs to be recalibrated, Orion explained, then contained within a modified field that will prevent further timeline fractures. As they worked, Nadia found herself studying him, the careful precision of his movements, the focused intensity in his amber eyes. Despite everything, she felt a pull toward him she couldn't explain. In the previous loops, she asked hesitantly, how did we... what happened between us? Orion's hands stilled momentarily. The first time, we were adversaries until the end. The second, reluctant allies. The third. He looked up, meeting her gaze. The third time, you trusted me despite your own warning. We worked together for weeks before returning to this facility. And the fourth? A soft, sad smile touched his lips. The fourth time? We had 7 weeks together. Trained together, planned together. You showed me human music. I taught you cerulean meditation techniques. One night, after nearly dying in a skirmish with Webb's forces, you told me you were tired of fighting what you felt. The anchor flared suddenly, projecting a vivid scene into the air between them, Nadia and Orion, in what appeared to be living quarters, standing close. Her hand reaching up to touch his face. I remember none of this, Nadia whispered, transfixed by the image. But I remember all of it, Orion replied, his voice low and intense. Every time we reset, I lose pieces, but the core remains. The way you laugh when you're genuinely amused. How you always check your weapon 3 times before a mission. The small scar on your shoulder from childhood. The projection shifted, showing them embracing, foreheads pressed together in an intimate gesture. Webb discovered our relationship in the 4th iteration, Orion continued. He realized it was a threat to his plans. That's when he ordered me directly to eliminate you once the anchor was stabilized. I couldn't do it. Another tremor, stronger. This time, warning lights flashed on Orion's equipment. Stead, he said, working frantically to adjust settings. I tried to get you away from the facility. But the radiation exposure was already too high. You collapsed just outside. With your Last breath, you made me promise to break the cycle. Nadia moved to help him, their hands working in unconscious synchronization. That's why my future self was there yesterday. She was trying to warn me, create a different outcome. Yes, Orion confirmed. But she didn't know what I've learned since then. Webb has fail-safes within fail-safes. Even if you avoid me, even if you expose him, the anchor will destabilize completely. When that happens, the timeline doesn't just reset, it fractures. Billions die in the quantum collapse. Their eyes met over the equipment, understanding passing. Between them, there's only one way to end this, isn't there? Nadia asked softly. Orion nodded, reaching across the anchor to take her hand. His touch felt strangely familiar, despite being entirely new to her. We have to break the anchor's connection to your genetic signature, he said. But doing so will release a fatal dose of radiation. To me, but not to you, she finished for him. His grip tightened on hers. I won't let you sacrifice yourself. Again, not this time. The cum unit crackled to life. Status report, Sergeant, Webb demanded. Nadia looked at Orion, a decision forming. We're experiencing technical difficulties, Director, she replied. Request additional time. Negative. If you cannot complete the mission in the next 10 minutes, evacuate immediately. That's an order. Understood, she said, then switched off the cum entirely. Orion watched her amber eyes, questioning. What are you thinking? Nadia stepped closer. To him, something instinctive guiding her actions. You said we had 7 weeks together last time. Tell me about them. The temporal anchor pulsed with increasing urgency as Nadia and Orion worked against time, their bodies moving in coordinated rhythm as if they'd done this many times before. In some reality, they had. In the 4th iteration, Orion said, answering her earlier question, we discovered Webb's true plan while investigating Proxima's outer facilities. We found evidence that he'd been experimenting with the anchor technology for years, causing smaller loops that no one remembered except him. Another tremor shook the facility. The ceiling groaned ominously. We became partners in every sense, he continued, hands never stopping their work. You taught me to play chess. I showed you the constellation maps of my homeworld. We argued about music and philosophy. We made plans for after the Mission Impossible plans, but we made them anyway. Plans for what? Nadia asked, connecting. Power couplings to Orion's equipment. A smile touched his lips. He wanted to see the crystal forests of Cerulean Prime. I wanted to experience Earth's oceans. We talked about finding somewhere between our worlds where we could just exist together. The anchor's surface swirled faster, projecting fragmentary images around them, the two of them walking through a forest of towering crystalline structures, sitting beside what appeared to be an ocean at sunset, standing together on a balcony beneath twin moons. Webb's secondary team found us the night before we planned to return to Epsilon, Orion said, his voice tightening. You were injured in the firefight, got you to safety, but the delay meant the radiation levels here were already critical when we arrived. The final connections were made. Orion's equipment hummed to life, interfacing with the anchor. Status. Indicators flickered from red to yellow, stabilizing, but not yet stable. We need to complete the genetic decoupling, he said, pointing to a sequence on the display. But doing so will kill me, Nadia finished. I understand. She studied the anchor, watching reflections of their multiple lives together shimmer. Across its surface, lives she had no memory of, yet somehow felt deep in her bones. What if there's another way? She asked suddenly. You said Webb remembers everything between iterations. How? Orion's eyes widened with realization. He wears a quantum stabilizer device that maintains his consciousness across timeline resets. It's how he manipulates events to his advantage. Could it protect me from the radiation? Possibly, but Webb would never. Nadia activated her cum. Director Webb, we've encountered a serious problem with the anchor. Request your immediate assistance at our location. After a moment of silence, Webb's voice came through, tense with suspicion. What kind of problem? It's the kind only you can fix, she replied, catching Orion's eye. The stabilization matrix is rejecting my genetic signature. We need your override. Another pause. I'm on my way. Not attempt any further adjustments. She switched off the cum and turned to Orion. We'll have about 4 minutes from when he enters the facility until he reaches us. Can you reconfigure your equipment in that time? Understanding dawned in his expression. Yes, but Nadia, if this doesn't work, then we're no worse off than we were before, she said. She stepped closer to him, guided by an instinct she didn't fully understand but somehow trusted. You said, I took a chance on you before. I'm doing it again. His hand came up to touch her face, the gesture achingly familiar despite being entirely new to her. Why, you have every reason not to trust me, because something about you feels right, she admitted. Like I've known you much longer than a day. The anchor pulsed between them, its light casting everything in an ethereal glow. In that moment, driven by feeling rather than thought, Nadia leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The contact was electric strange, yet familiar, foreign, yet perfectly right. When they parted, Orion's eyes had darkened to a deep amber. That's new for this iteration, he said softly. A good change? The best. He squeezed her hand once, then turned back to the equipment with renewed purpose. Let's finish this, for real this time. They worked in focused silence, reconfiguring the equipment to create a modified stabilization field. The plan was dangerous intercept Webb, take his quantum stabilizer, use it to protect Nadia during the genetic decoupling process. If it worked, they would break the loop without sacrificing her life. If it failed, he's entering the facility now, Orion said, monitoring a small scanner. 3 minutes at most. Nadia positioned herself near the entrance, weapon ready. Remember, we need him conscious enough to tell us how to operate the stabilizer. And if he refuses, she met his gaze steadily. Then I do what I've apparently done before. I make the sacrifice. Orion shook his head. Not this time. If he refuses, we find another way. Footsteps echoed down the corridor outside. Nadia pressed herself against the wall beside the door, his heart pounding but hands steady. Webb entered cautiously, a slender device held before him like a wand. Sergeant Kessler? Orion? Nadia moved swiftly, sweeping his legs and pinning him too. The ground in one fluid motion. Sorry, Director. Change of plans. Webb struggled beneath her, eyes wild with fury. You don't understand what you're doing? The anchor needs to reset, so you can what? Orion asked, approaching with restraints. Continue experimenting with time? Keep manipulating events to your advantage? To save humanity? Webb spat. The Proxima conflict is coming. Without the tactical advantage of temporal foresight, Earth will fall. Millions will die. And how many have died in your loops already? Nadia demanded, removing the quantum stabilizer from his wrist. How many times have you sacrificed me and countless others for your greater good? Webb's eyes narrowed. You've remembered somehow. That's not possible. I helped her remember, Orion said, securing Webb's restraints. Should have considered that your pet cerulean might develop a conscience. The anchor pulsed violently, the room shuddering around them. Warning indicators flashed red across Orion's equipment. We're out of time, he said urgently. Anchor is reaching critical instability. Nadia examined the quantum stabilizer, a sleek band of metal with intricate circuitry. How does it work? Webb laughed bitterly. You think I'd tell you? Without the reset, we lose everything. I've seen the future. Without our intervention, it ends in extinction. You've seen a possible future, Orion corrected. One path among many. You became so fixated on controlling time that you never considered alternatives. Another violent tremor. Part of the ceiling collapsed nearby, blocking the exit. The decoupling sequence is ready, Orion said, turning to Nadia. But without knowing how to activate the stabilizer, she looked from the device to Webb, then to the anchor. Within its swirling surface, she saw reflections of countless possibilities, lives lived, choices made, paths taken and abandoned. We make our own future, she said with sudden clarity. Not by controlling time, but by making the right choices now. She slipped the stabilizer onto her wrist and approached the anchor. Instinctively, she knew what to do, knowledge perhaps carried. Through the quantum fabric of her existence across iterations, Nadia, wait, Orion began. Trust me, she said, offering him a smile. I think I've done this before. She pressed her palm against the anchor's surface, feeling its energy resonate with something deep within her. With her other hand, she activated the stabilizer. Blue light engulfed her as the anchor responded to her genetic signature. Initiating decoupling sequence, she said, voice steady despite the pain beginning to radiate through her body. No, Webb shouted, struggling against his restraints. You'll destroy everything I've built. The anchor's surface became transparent, revealing a complex lattice of energy at its core. Nadia felt the stabilizer grow hot against her skin as it fought to maintain her quantum cohesion. Orion moved to her side, supporting her as the energy intensified. Stay with me, he urged. Just a few more seconds. The pain became nearly unbearable, but Nadia held on, focusing on Orion's face, on the future they might have if they succeeded. With a final brilliant flash, the anchor's core shifted from pulsing red to stable blue. The tremors ceased. The projection of temporal echoes faded. Nadia collapsed into Orion's arms, breathing heavily but alive. Did it work? She gasped. He checked his equipment, eyes widening. The anchor is stable. The loop is broken. He looked at her with wonder. You did it? Webb stared at them in disbelief. Impossible. The radiation exposure should have killed me, Nadia finished, examining her arms where the blue light of the stabilizer still shimmered beneath her skin. Apparently not. Seems your device works better than you thought. Later, as Proxima security forces took Webb into custody and containment specialists secured the anchor, Nadia and Orion stood on an observation platform overlooking the facility. What happens now? She asked. If the loop is truly broken, Orion took her hand, his touch no longer strange, but comfortingly familiar. Now we make new memories, ones we both get to keep. The crystal forests, she suggested with a smile. The oceans, all of it, he promised. And this time, no one resets. The clock. As they looked out at the horizon, where Proxima's twin suns were beginning to set, Nadia felt the quantum stabilizer pulse gently against her wrist, a reminder that time, while no longer their enemy, remained the most precious resource of all. In breaking the loop, they had gained something far more valuable than temporal control: the freedom to write their own story, one moment at a time.